Celebrating 43 years on the air, Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, the supply chain backup from the front lines. Who knows how long it will last? Plus, it's always been a balancing act between people and profit, but one community is right on the money. In today's market report, Zac looks inside one industry left out of the USDA's recent rescue plan. And in our feature, is there enough protein in U.S. soybeans? Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everybody, I'm Mike Russell. Good to have you with us today on Farm Week. As you may know, the details of that rescue plan for farmers were just released. Some sectors of the ag economy were left out of the plan, at least for now, namely aquaculture. Zac will have much more on that in his market report later in the show. In the meantime, though, livestock operators are looking for new options as processing plants slow their intake. John Torpy has more.
For the better part of a month, the supply chain providing meat to U.S. consumers has been coping with the impact of COVID-19. With close to half of the nation's slaughter capacity closed or greatly reduced, consumers are left with purchase limits and limited choice at the meat counter. For producers, many are left with the task of euthanizing perfectly healthy animals because there's nowhere to take them for processing.
We were scheduled to have our barn empty by May 5th. We got a little pushback, in scheduling. It seemed like it took forever to kind of get loads lined up. And then when we did have it lined up, they were canceled occasionally. But we lucked out as far as being able to get them out and gone. Barns cleaned out and we restocked again. And that would be the pigs that then Jake took control of.
Brad and Jacob Benda are a father and son team working on a multi-family operation in east central Iowa. They farm around 2,800 acres and raise close to 5,000 hogs annually.
The packer notified us that, they're not going to be able to guarantee the numbers that our contract that we have with them for shackle space. We were basically had loads scheduled. They would get canceled or pushed back, rescheduled to other days. What normally would take about 3 weeks to clean out a 1,200 head building took about just shy of 6 weeks.
Packing plants continued to close due to coronavirus outbreaks among their employees, causing a bottleneck for livestock producers trying to get their animals to market.
And it was everyday phone calls to the buyer. Can we get a load in this week? Can we get 2 loads in this week? Can we get any loads in this week? And so that awful realization of if you had to actually euthanize pigs to, get to be able to take that next group of babies coming in, or you would try and find somewhere to put them for a temporary holding. There's so many different things that you can do, and then ultimately, if none of that can be found, then you'd have to euthanize the animal.
In an effort to avoid culling part of his herd, Jacob Benda turned to social media as another avenue to sell his animals. What happened next astounded the Bendas.
It blew up, just went crazy. It started off with, friends sharing, and then friends of friends shared it, and the friends of the friends of the friends that shared it, and within, I believe, 2 days, it was over a couple thousand shares.
The social media post ended up moving a portion of Benda's inventory, helping them avoid the possibility of having to euthanize pigs.
We've got rid of about 30% of the feeder pigs that we had. If I was able to go through and actually respond to everybody on Facebook, I would have that building, that 1,200 head building, sold over probably twice.
But even with the success found in an unlikely arena, the operation still has hurdles to jump over, as the coronavirus continues to rewrite normal for agriculture.
We're out for maximum production in our sow unit. So to scale that back prematurely would be a bad deal, So I think it's just a moment by moment, month by month kind of decision going forward on whether or not this does return to normal, if normal will ever be reached.
As this pandemic unwinds, the supply chain's still an issue, sometimes even more so for rural America, where the balance between having enough people in town and making a profit has spelled the end for some local businesses. But at least one town has found a way to leverage its buying power. Peter Tubbs has more.
In Gowrie, Iowa, the old grocery store is now the new grocery store. During a month-long transition, the town had no grocery store at all. But the nearly 1,000 residents saw it coming.
And so at that point, there was a group of us that kind of got together and said, oh, we see the writing on the wall.
In January, the former owner was closing several of his grocery stores, like this one in nearby Rockwell City, that served small towns in central Iowa. Gowrie was on the list. Community members asked if they could help.
Reached out to him and said, would you be willing to sell it if we could raise funds?
In 10 days, the citizens of Gowrie raised over $250,000 to buy the building and everything inside.
That's when we kind of got together and said, well, how is this going to work? What does this look like? Is it a private company, LLC? Is it a cooperative? Is it a community nonprofit?
Now named the Market on Market, the grocery has over 100 owners who purchased a share of the store for $2,500. Each share in the grocery is a bet on the long-term viability of Gowrie. But opening in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, the market has seen the same customer shopping habits that are stressing the supply chain. The change is challenging the new manager. Larry Roper spent the last 20 years as a produce manager for the grocery stores and box stores that are now his competition.
A lot of it's high demand items, like, everybody knows the toilet paper thing, the paper towel, the napkin, those sort of things. The cleaning, sanitizing chemicals that are used to keep your hands sanitized, all that sort of stuff is very, very slim and rare for the customer to be able to buy off the shelf.
Some meat items have been hard to stock, but customers are adapting to what is available. During the ownership transition, the store was closed for a month-long cleaning and renovation. A month that meant shopping for groceries in other towns. The return of the local store was not lost on residents.
In retrospect, I think that was a good thing because people really did understand what it meant to lose the store and not have it here. So I think there is a whole new appreciation for having that right here to be able to go there and find all of the things that they need and to have those store shelves stocked full of the supplies that we need.
The Market on Market is now an LLC, and the board members are looking to make a profit. The next step will be to expand the store size and return the deli to operation. But the emphasis today is on customer service and the revitalization of the 3,000 square feet of grocery space.
I've always believed in the grand opening look in a store every day. Just the way I was trained in past, so when the customer comes in, they can say, wow. The end result, we want them to be able to say, this is my store, and that's our ultimate goal.
In a business known for tight margins, volume is the key to profits, regardless of size.
We are more in belief of fast nickel's better slow dime.
And nickel by nickel, Gowrie is keeping its grocery options open.
In Southern Gardening today, rules? Well, there are no rules. At least that's Gary Bachman's opinion. Your landscape, of course, is there for your pleasure, and no one says you can't make all the decisions. Here's Gary.
I'm asked all the time about landscape design, as if there's rules to follow. That's exactly why I like to visit my friend Jane's garden. Now don't get me wrong, Jane is serious about her landscape. I love her front plantings, which consist of an eclectic mix of nice plant material. Approaching the front door, I like the spring growth on the golden Thryallis displayed on the rusty brown stems. In July, these shrubs will put on a display of bright yellow flower clusters, each tinged with red stamens and pistils. The head-high pinkish angel trumpets with their downward-pointing flowers are just starting to bloom. Look at all the buds hanging, waiting their turn to shine. I love the Mexican heather growing along the front border. These look good around the base of the kneeling terracotta warrior. The profuse purple flowers are produced on compact plants. These plants are regularly divided and replanted, filling in spaces around the landscape. And how about the coarse and interesting texture of this agave or century plant? I've always thought of these as being solitary plants. It's surprising to me how many little baby agave offsets are produced around the base of the plant. The garden should be a place to enjoy and have fun, so go ahead and get some interesting plants for your landscape. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman, and I'll see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, are U.S. soybeans high enough in protein? American farmers get paid by the bushel, but because protein levels are higher elsewhere, they could lose market share. In the U.S., synthetics are becoming more popular, but is that the way to go? Many say a balance between yield and protein is critical, but here's the key. It takes years to develop new soy varieties. The protein debate, that's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
It's a simple idea. Knowledge that transforms lives shouldn't be limited to those on a campus, but extended to any and all who want or need it, wherever they are. At Mississippi State University, we've been making that possible for more than 100 years through the MSU Extension Service. What began as an effort to extend the latest research to farmers has become something much more. Today, we're helping Mississippians from all walks of life, giving them the tools they need to build a brighter future. We're sparking the imagination of students around the state and inspiring the next generation of doctors. We're helping rural communities find their way to the internet and connect to the world at large. And we're teaching families how to lead healthier lives in ways both big and small. MSU is standing firm in its commitment to that one simple idea: extend the knowledge that transforms lives wherever they are.
Before we get back to the show, let's take a look at the Farm Week calendar. If you're reinventing yourself in the coronavirus era, how about some professional development classes? Mississippi State University Extension is offering 10 different classes, all of them free through June 30th and all self-paced online. If you're looking for work or just want some new skills, any one of these could be helpful. Choose from 12 steps to a successful job search, small business marketing on a shoestring, marketing your business on the internet, creating web pages, creating WordPress websites, fundamentals of supervision and management, individual excellence, personal finance, managing customer service, and keys to effective communication. Again, all of these courses are free through June 30th, and you have a full 3 months to complete the course once you're enrolled. Interested? Visit ce.extension.msstate.edu, or for more information, contact Dixie Cartwright at dlc10@msstate.edu. Time now for the markets. Zac's here with the deep dive, and that's no pun intended for one of his stories. Zac?
That's right, Mike. We'll be dipping our toes into that bit of the agricultural landscape a little bit later. But first, market's looking a slight bit better this week. Row crops mostly down, while livestock, soy oil, and lumber gave a mixed bag, mostly from recovery prices and general market fluctuations. Let's take a look. Lots of commodities down, but we're mostly talking dollars and cents, so nothing too crushing. Biggest loss? Soybeans down $5.25. Biggest gain? Lumber up an impressive $21.30. That's a complete reversal from last week's fall of $20. And why is that? Well, COVID-19 hindering lumber production, and that means less available for construction. Another potential reason? An ongoing issue facing tree growers in Central Europe. The spruce bark beetle ravaging forest land normally used for timber. According to Reuters, between 4 and 6% of this year's harvest could be lost. Why would that affect us? 2 reasons. 1, markets change based on worldwide availability. 2, because we're net exporters of lumber. Last year, we sold nearly $3 billion of sawn wood. The world's largest exporter, Canada, at about $6 billion. That's a lot of lumber, eh? As we said earlier in the show, aquaculture excluded from the upcoming Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, an industry close to home for us here in Mississippi. I decided to take a look into the numbers, getting an idea of the losses so far. Let's take a look. Based on a statement delivered to Congress by Dr. Jimmy Avery of Mississippi State University Extension, estimated sales loss nationwide for catfish somewhere between less than $1,000 and $3 million per farm in March alone. Employee layoffs significant. A majority of farmers saying they've laid off or are about to lay off from 1 to 3, 16 to 20, or as many as 150 workers for a single farm. On a slightly brighter side, a majority of farmers saying they might survive without assistance, but that's a big might. So, why are aquaculture and catfish in such a jam? It all has to do with domestic consumption. According to the Congressional Research Service, only 1% of catfish grown in the U.S. is exported. That means the rest is sold and eaten here. 60% of all catfish sales go to restaurants. Their decline means less fish being sold, and it's not just catfish. Shrimp, oysters, trout, all other aquaculture products left out of the program for now. So, is there a brighter side? Yes. Dr. Avery says Washington has not overlooked aquaculture, and the industry is preparing to reach out.
The final rule did stipulate that aquaculture is an eligible crop type. Okay. It did say essentially that it needed more information, and therefore they will gather that information for aquaculture under this notice of funds availability going forward. So we are in the discussion. Okay, just because we were not specifically stated in the final rule about what those payments would be, we are in the discussion phase. The other thing that I would like catfish farmers to know is that this May 6th date does not apply to them. Okay, this is for those commodities that have already been ruled eligible in the final rule. Our start date for applications will be sometime in the future, but it's not May 26th. A large number of different aquaculture organizations that have looked at this have already put information in. They know the program as conceptualized could have a very positive impact on their recovery going forward. So I think there's a lot of support out there, bipartisan, and really across agriculture and aquaculture combined. The way that I have read the final rule in the NOFA is that USDA is holding back about $637 million to kind of be split up amongst aquaculture and nursery crops. So I think that's the piece of the pie that we're trying to divvy up.
How could this program help aquaculture when it's focused on other commodities? Well, most businesses selling seafood, restaurants included, also sell beef, pork, chicken, and other meats. By getting them back on their feet, the industry goes back to normal and aquaculture goes with it. At least that seems to be the plan. However, as Dr. Avery said, funds appear reserved for future action. I'll keep an eye on it. The story's not over yet. And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Mike?
Thank you, Zach. Regardless of how the trade agreement with China works out, pork prices there more than doubled thanks to African swine fever and the virus outbreak. Going forward, Chinese producers and others look to source their feed based on price and protein content. Here's a look at how American soybeans might or might not meet that feed.
For decades, the soybean meal used in livestock feed was evaluated by the percentage of protein it contained. The higher the protein, the more the soy meal was valued as a way to grow healthy, strong livestock. So when studies pinpointed a slight but notable decline in U.S. soybean protein levels, 0.8% over 30 years to 34.3%, some livestock nutrition experts and plant breeders became concerned.
Well, the decline we see in protein concentration in soybeans and in soybean meal is a pretty big deal because it reduces the value. And you have to remember, pigs and poultry, they consume more than 75% of all the soybean meal that is produced in the world.
Jeff Thompson, a research lead for North American soybeans at Corteva Agrisciences in Johnston, Iowa, points out that as yields have increased, the amount of protein produced per acre has actually grown. But he understands how the dip in the percentage in each bushel is problematic for livestock producers.
So as protein concentrations go down, more soybeans need to be crushed, and that alters the feed rations for poultry and swine in particular. That rate of decline has been slightly greater than the rate of decline, say, in Brazil. And the reason for that is temperature is also a component. So when temperatures are decreased, especially during seed development and maturity, protein levels tend to go down.
While most of the expansion of soybean planting in recent decades has been to cooler climates of the northern U.S., the bulk of expansion in South America has been to warmer regions. U.S. industry leaders acknowledge the lower protein levels could mean the loss of market share. For row crop farmers, there is no direct financial incentive to focus on the amount of protein. When taking their soybeans to the grain elevator, farmers are generally paid solely on the number of bushels they bring in.
You got to look at what is going to return for what I'm paying for the seed, what I think will be the best for my ground and for my acres. That's our bottom line, to see if we're going to, be above or below the profit line.
The two traits tend to have an inverse relationship. As yield increases, protein tends to decline. A soybean checkoff funded study suggests farmers could earn an additional $7.70 to $12.96 per acre if they increased protein levels by 1%.
In the 21st century, as we've gotten so good at our technology and what our expertise that we can do, that we should be looking a little bit deeper as to actually what the meal needs to do for whatever we're feeding it to.
Researchers and animal nutritionists are taking a deep dive inside the soybean and examining essential amino acids, which generally increase as protein percentages move higher. Animals are unable to make these amino acids on their own and must consume them to grow. A debate has arisen over whether the increase in the essential amino acids, lysine and methionine among them, slow a bit once a protein moves beyond a certain percentage.
This is a hotly contested subject, this whole thing about, are U.S. soybeans high enough in protein? Can we compete with South American soybeans? Are northern United States soybeans high enough in protein to compete with southern United States protein? But again, these new studies and these studies that are going to continue to really look at, is it all about total protein, crude protein levels, or is it about analyzing and determining the right amino acid balance?
Some are already advocating that soybeans should be marketed by amino acid levels rather than overall protein.
My bias, based on the data I've seen and based on my understanding of the biochemistry, I think we're going to migrate rather quickly towards analyzing soybeans and the meal from soybeans at the amino acid level rather than the total crude protein level.
Internationally, I've been on some trade mission, educational missions, and that's the first thing that's always thrown up to U.S. producers is that our soy, our protein, is just a little bit less than might be from South America or from other sources. And so it's a hurdle to get over to having to talk about something besides protein as far as the value of what they're buying.
Stein says this may change. Synthetic amino acids are becoming more commonly used in both Asia and the U.S., threatening soybean meal's position in feeding livestock.
Feed companies and the integrators, they can purchase individual amino acids and more of them, which means that they need less and less soybean meal. And so I think that's the biggest competitor. It would take the entire industry, but the crushers more than anyone else, to change how they pay the producers for their soybeans. So if a producer is rewarded for delivering high amino acid beans, then the producers would start changing and start selecting those high amino acid beans from the breeders.
At Corteva, where it takes 7 years to develop and release a new soybean variety, researchers are focused on yield first and disease and pest resistance second. However, they are not discounting the need to watch protein percentages.
We in the research community really need to strike a balance between protein concentrations and yield. And what our goal could be would be to stabilize the decline in protein concentrations while continuing to improve yields. That would be a way that we could benefit both the animal agriculture industry and our farmer customers.
Yield versus protein content, one more thing commanding the attention of producers. Well, next week, 3 special stories that showcase how extension matters. First up, Peyton Bell, the sweet story of a young girl who lights up the show ring. Then she's a dancer, pageant winner, and former 4-H'er, but Emma Grace McGrew says she's just a country girl. And you'll love this story. They don't make cowboys more genuine than Ted Parker. All that and more next time on Farm Week. Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv. And don't forget to follow us as usual on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. We'll see you next week. Stay healthy. Thanks for watching.